Open your refrigerator and look at the bottle beside the milk. The word creamer is printed in large letters. The label may show caramel pouring into coffee, a swirl of vanilla, or a cafe drink that looks as if it came from a barista. Now turn the bottle around. In some of America's best-selling creamers, cream is not the first ingredient. In several, cream is not an ingredient at all. Water, sugar, vegetable oil, milk-derived protein, emulsifiers, and flavor systems do the work that shoppers assume cream is doing. And here is the detail most people never hear. A product marketed as non-dairy can still contain sodium caseinate, a protein derived from milk, as long as that source is disclosed on the ingredient panel. That is why some labels say sodium caseinate, a milk derivative, even while the front creates a dairy-free. Then there is the serving size. Most liquid creamers list nutrition for 1 tablespoon. A generous pour can easily become 3 or 4. A product with 5 grams of added sugar per tablespoon becomes 15 or 20 grams before breakfast has even started. Today, we are examining 10 specific coffee creamer brands sold across the United States, from the lower concerns to the most difficult to justify. Then we will reveal 5 options made with simpler ingredients or no added sugar. This is not a list of poisonous products. The additives discussed here are permitted for their intended uses under United States food rules. We are judging label clarity, added sugar, whether cream is actually present, and whether the product delivers what its packaging encourages shoppers to believe. For this comparison, we examined current United States ingredient panels and nutrition facts information available during production. We normalized sweetened liquid products to the same 1 tablespoon serving, then showed what happens at 3 and 4 tablespoons, because that is where a small number becomes a meaningful daily amount. We did not treat every stabilizer as a health hazard, and we did not rank an entire company from one flavor. The ranking applies to the named product. Prices, package sizes, and formulations can vary by region, so the bottle in your store remains the final authority. Let's begin. Number 10. Starbucks Caramel Macchiato Flavored Creamer. This is the one that borrows the coffee shop experience. To be fair, this product contains milk and cream. That already separates it from many products higher on this list. The concern is not that Starbucks has hidden vegetable oil behind a dairy-free formula. The concern is how quickly the cafe halo can distract from the sugar math. The current label reports approximately 5 grams of added sugar in a 1 tablespoon serving. 1 tablespoon looks small when measured into a spoon. It looks much smaller when poured directly from a wide bottle into a dark cup. Use 3 tablespoons, and the creamer contributes roughly 15 grams of added sugar. Use 4, and you reach approximately 20 grams. The FDA's daily value is 50 grams of added sugar on a 2,000-calorie diet. The American Heart Association recommends a more restrictive limit of approximately 25 grams per day for most women and 36 grams for most men. That means a casual pour can use a large share of the day's suggested added sugar allowance before the coffee is finished. The bottle is selling a flavor experience. The nutrition facts panel is counting 1 tablespoon. If this is your favorite, measure it once. Not forever. Just once. Pour your normal amount into the mug, then transfer it to a tablespoon. The result may explain more than any slogan on the front. Starbucks gives you real dairy. It also gives you coffee shop sweetness in a serving size many people never reproduce. The next product is built around a phrase that openly promises more of both. Number 9. Dunkin' Extra Extra. Extra Extra is one of the most honest names in the aisle. It tells you exactly what the product is trying to recreate. The pale, sweet Dunkin' coffee that regular customers recognize immediately. The refrigerated formula contains dairy ingredients alongside sugar and a stabilizing system designed to keep the product uniform. So this is not another bottle made only from water and oil. But the name encourages a heavy pour. The standard serving is still 1 tablespoon. The sweetness that makes Extra Extra taste familiar is concentrated enough that multiple tablespoons can turn unsweetened coffee into a sugar-sweetened beverage without the drink ever being described that way. This is the category's central trick, not an illegal trick, a visual one. Coffee is served in 8, 12, 16 and 20-ounce cups. Creamer nutrition is displayed for half a fluid ounce. The larger the mug, the less realistic that tablespoon begins to feel. If you love Dunkin'-style coffee, this bottle is doing what it promises. But if you bought it because making coffee at home felt automatically lighter than buying a prepared drink, the comparison depends entirely on how much enters the cup. Dunkin' Extra Extra is lower on this list because the identity is fairly clear. It is sweet, it is creamy, and the name does not pretend otherwise. The problem is that extra is a flavor instruction, while the label still calculates 1 tablespoon. Number 8. Califia Farms Caramel Macchiato Almond Creamer. Califia Farms sells a very different image from the traditional oil-based creamer. The bottle is sleek, the branding is plant-forward. Caramel Macchiato connects the product to coffee shop indulgence, while almond signals a modern dairy alternative. The product is clearly plant-based, and that deserves credit. No reasonable shopper should expect dairy cream in an almond creamer. The useful question is what replaces it. The current formula uses an almond base with sweetener, coconut-derived richness, flavoring and ingredients that help the creamer remain smooth in hot, acidic coffee. It is designed to pour, whiten and resist separation more effectively than ordinary almond milk. That is a technical achievement. It is also why almond creamer should not be interpreted as almonds and water. The caramel macchiato identity adds sugar and flavor to a product many shoppers select under a wellness halo. A 1 tablespoon serving can look modest. 3 or 4 tablespoons turn it into a sweetened coffee ingredient with a very different nutrition profile from unsweetened almond milk. Califia ranks lower on the concern list because its plant-based identity is clear and the formula is generally more straightforward than several products still ahead. But the bottle demonstrates a rule that applies across the entire aisle. Plant-based describes the source. It does not mean unsweetened. It does not mean minimally formulated. And it does not make portion size irrelevant. If you buy Califia for the almond base, compare the caramel product with an unsweetened version before deciding which one matches your goal. Number 7. Silk Sweet and Creamy Almond Creamer. This is where the investigation becomes more specific. Silk does not claim that this product contains dairy cream. It is clearly marketed as an almond-based creamer, and that matters. A plant-based product should not be criticized merely because it is plant-based. The question is what shoppers think almond creamer means. The ingredient panel begins with almond milk, filtered water and almonds, then includes cane sugar, sunflower oil, pea protein and ingredients that assist with texture, buffering and suspension. That is food formulation. It is not evidence of toxicity, but it is also very different from pouring almonds and water into coffee. The word almond supplies the health halo. The creamy performance comes from the complete system. The sweetened version contains added sugar, and once again, the listed serving is 1 tablespoon. A person avoiding dairy may reasonably decide that the trade-off is worthwhile. A person buying it because the carton simply looks cleaner than conventional creamer should compare the back panels rather than the design. Silk deserves credit for clearly identifying the product as plant-based. It loses points because sweet and creamy can make a formulated sweetened product feel like a neutral splash of almond milk. For someone with a milk allergy, the plant-based identity can be essential. For someone merely trying to reduce added sugar, this particular product may not solve the problem they brought to the aisle. The carton answers one question very clearly. It does not answer every nutrition question the buyer may have. Number 6. Planet Oat Caramel Creamer. Planet Oat occupies one of the fastest growing spaces in the refrigerator. It is the product that looks halfway between oat milk and a flavored coffeehouse creamer. The front emphasizes oats and caramel. The buyer sees plant-based and dairy-free, then often assumes the product is automatically simpler. But oat creamers need help doing what dairy fat does naturally. The caramel formula combines an oat base with sweetener, oil, flavoring, and ingredients used to maintain consistency. The oil is not an accidental contaminant. It is part of the texture system. Oat water alone does not create the same whitening, body, or mouthfeel as half and half. The caramel identity adds another layer. Caramel on a coffee creamer label is usually a flavor promise, not a statement that the bottle contains traditional caramel prepared by browning sugar in a pan. Flavor compounds can reproduce a consistent caramel profile at enormous scale without the company publishing the full flavor formula. The practical concern is simpler. This is a sweetened beverage ingredient. It is not plain oat milk. Planet Oat is a legitimate option for people avoiding dairy. It is not automatically the restrained option. The front of the carton tells you what the product does not contain. The nutrition facts panel tells you what it contributes. Those are two different questions. If oat is the priority, compare this caramel product with an unsweetened option. The biggest improvement may come from changing the flavor, not changing the brand. Number 5. Great Value French Vanilla. This is Walmart's value play. The bottle looks familiar because it follows the visual grammar of the entire category. Cream-colored coffee, vanilla flowers, soft lettering, and a price designed to make the national brands feel unnecessary. The current ingredient panel for Great Value French Vanilla begins with water, sugar, and vegetable oil. It then lists small amounts of flavoring and functional ingredients, including sodium caseinate, dipotassium phosphate, emulsifiers, and stabilizers. Cream is not doing the work. Water creates the base. Oil supplies richness. Sugar and flavor create the experience. Milk-derived caseinate helps with whitening and stability. The formula is built from inexpensive, consistent ingredients that can move through a national retail system. That is not a secret. The ingredients are printed on the bottle. The surprise is how little attention shoppers give them, because the product lives beside milk and half in the refrigerated case. A 1 tablespoon serving of a typical sweetened French vanilla creamer contains around 5 grams of added sugar. At 3 tablespoons, that is approximately 15 grams. Use the bottle twice a day, and the arithmetic changes again. The low shelf price is real. For a household watching every grocery dollar, that matters. But compare cost per cup, not only cost per bottle. The store brand did not invent the water-sugar-oil model. It copied a model that national brands taught American shoppers to accept. The lower price may be the most transparent part of the package. Number 4. Kroger French Vanilla Place. Kroger French Vanilla beside the Walmart product and the ingredient lists read like close relatives. Water, sugar, vegetable oil, then small amounts of flavoring, sodium caseinate, phosphates, emulsifiers, and stabilizers for leaning. The logo changes. The basic architecture does not. Sodium caseinate deserves special attention. It is derived from milk protein. Federal labeling rules specifically address non-dairy foods containing caseinate and require the milk source to be identified. The ingredient may contain very little lactose, but low in lactose, non-dairy, and milk-free are not interchangeable ideas. Anyone with a milk allergy should rely on the allergen declaration, not the advertising category. Anyone following a vegan diet should read the ingredient list rather than assuming every non-dairy style creamer is free from animal-derived ingredients. For the average shopper, the main issue remains the same: sugar and serving size. 5 grams in 1 tablespoon can look insignificant. 15 grams in the amount actually poured is a different decision. Kroger's product is not necessarily worse than the national brand sitting beside it. It is evidence that the formula has become the category standard. When every bottle looks creamy, shoppers stop asking which one contains cream. This one is selling French vanilla. The dairy impression comes mostly from where the store places it. Number 3. International Delight French Vanilla. International Delight does not hide from flavor. French vanilla is one of the best-known bottles in the refrigerator, and the product has built its identity around sweetness, consistency, and the ability to make ordinary coffee taste like dessert in seconds. The current ingredient list begins with water, sugar, and palm oil. It contains sodium caseinate, identified as a milk derivative, plus ingredients that keep the emulsion stable and its texture uniform. There is no reason to describe those additives as mysterious poisons. Honest criticism is more powerful than a frightening one. This bottle is a sweetened oil and water emulsion, flavored to perform like vanilla cream. It is allowed to be exactly that. The label tells you exactly that, but the front, the refrigerator placement, and the word creamer encourage a faster conclusion. At roughly 5 grams of added sugar per tablespoon, a 4-tablespoon pour supplies approximately 20 grams. That is 40% of the FDA daily value for added sugar, and most of the American Heart Association's suggested daily limit for many women. International Delight ranks higher because the product is not a minor variation of cream. The formula replaces cream's major functions with sugar, palm oil, milk protein, and stabilizers, while preserving the emotional language of indulgent dairy. You are not buying spoiled or illegal food. You are buying a flavored emulsion that is easier to overpour than the label makes obvious. Number 2. Splenda Sweet Cream Coffee Creamer. Splenda Sweet Cream is built around a promise that sounds almost impossible to resist: sweet, creamy coffee without the sugar. The current formula begins with water and mid-oleic sunflower oil. It uses erythritol for bulk, then small amounts of sodium caseinate, emulsifiers, cellulose ingredients, flavoring, sucralose, and acesulfame potassium to reproduce the sweetness and texture shoppers expect. Cream is not the foundation. The phrase sweet cream describes the flavor profile. It does not describe the main ingredient. Every part of the system has a purpose. Oil creates the body. Caseinate helps the product whiten and disperse in coffee. Cellulose controls texture. Erythritol and high-intensity sweeteners create sweetness without ordinary sugar appearing in the total. That can be genuinely useful for someone who wants to reduce added sugar. But zero sugar does not mean unsweetened. It does not mean the product became closer to half and half. And it does not mean every consumer will prefer the taste or tolerate the sweetener system in the same way. Splenda ranks near the top because the front panel answers one question so loudly that shoppers may forget to ask the others. How sweet is it? What creates the texture? Does it contain milk-derived protein? And is the goal to remove sugar, or to stop every cup from tasting like dessert? The sugar is gone. The sweet cream experience has been reconstructed from oil, milk protein, texture agents, and multiple sweeteners. That is a valid formulation. It is not cream. Number 1. Coffee Mate Original Powder. This is the pantry staple. No refrigeration before opening. A long shelf life. A white powder that transforms black coffee almost instantly. And despite the word original, there is nothing in the formula resembling original dairy cream. The ingredient list begins with corn syrup solids. Next comes hydrogenated vegetable oil, often coconut, palm kernel, or soybean oil, depending on the package. Then sodium caseinate, identified as a milk derivative, followed by emulsifiers, dipotassium phosphate, an anti-caking agent, flavoring, and color. No cream. This is why the legal language matters. Federal rules specifically contemplate a non-dairy creamer containing caseinate and require the milk source to be disclosed. A shopper can reasonably see non-dairy on the package and still find contains milk in the allergen statement. Non-dairy does not always mean milk-free. The listed serving can be as small as 1 teaspoon. That serving may report little or no sugar, because corn syrup solids do not always appear as total sugars in the way a shopper expects, even though they contribute carbohydrates and calories. Most people do not level 1 teaspoon into a mug. They shake or pour until the coffee changes color. Coffee Mate Original Powder is not number 1 because it is acutely dangerous. It is number 1 because it completes the category's illusion. A product made primarily from corn syrup solids and vegetable oil can sit on an American table for decades and become so synonymous with cream that shoppers stop noticing cream was never there. Convenient? Absolutely. Shelf-stable? Yes. Cream? No. And that is the claim this entire investigation was built to test. If this list has changed how you see the creamer aisle, a quick like helps more shoppers find it. Now let's turn the bottle around in the other direction. Here are 5 products that make a more defensible trade. Simpler ingredients, no added sugar, actual dairy, or a clearer plant-based identity. Before the better list, one important point. Better does not mean perfect. Dairy creamers can contain saturated fat. Plant-based creamers can still require stabilizers. Sweetened products still contribute added sugar, even when the ingredient list is short. The winners are products whose labels make the trade-off easier to see and control. Better pick number 5. Nut Pods Unsweetened. Original Nut Pods does not attempt to convince you that almonds and coconut are dairy cream. The original unsweetened product identifies its plant base and delivers creaminess through coconut cream and almonds, supported by small amounts of stabilizing ingredients. It is not a two-ingredient product. That matters. Anyone demanding only water and nuts should still read the panel. But it solves the largest problem in the sweetened creamer aisle. There is no added sugar in the unsweetened original. That changes the daily math immediately. 3 tablespoons do not quietly become 15 grams of added sugar. The product can still soften coffee and supply the body without training every cup to taste like vanilla candy or caramel syrup. The coconut component contributes saturated fat, so plant-based should not be translated automatically into unlimited. The serving size still matters, but the product's promise is much closer to what it delivers. It is a plant-based creamer. It is unsweetened. It does not use a coffee shop dessert name to imply that a heavily sweetened formula is a neutral breakfast ingredient. Nut pods is especially useful for someone who cannot consume dairy and does not want to replace it with sugar. A better label does not always produce a more exciting first sip. Sometimes it produces a more honest one. Better pick number 4. Elmhurst Unsweetened Oat Creamer. Elmhurst takes a different route. Its unsweetened oat creamer uses an oat base and hemp seeds to create body, with a relatively short supporting list for stability and performance in coffee. The improvement is that the product does not begin by turning oat creamer into dessert. No caramel identity, no sweet cream illusion. No added sugar load hiding behind a 1 tablespoon serving. For shoppers who choose oat products because of dairy allergy, lactose intolerance, vegan preference or taste, this is a more direct option than a flavored oat creamer built around sugar and oil. It also demonstrates an important rule. Do not compare an unsweetened product with a sweetened product and call the winner healthier without considering taste. They serve different preferences. The fair question is whether you are willing to add sweetness yourself, where you can see and measure it. Elmhurst will not taste like bottled caramel macchiato. That is exactly why it makes the list. The product gives you a neutral base and returns control of sweetness to the person holding the spoon. Better pick number 3. Chobani Sweet Cream Coffee Creamer. Chobani is the option for viewers who do not want unsweetened coffee and do not need to avoid dairy. The sweet cream creamer has been sold with a short, recognizable foundation: milk, cream, cane sugar, natural flavors. That does not make the added sugar disappear. Sweetened dairy creamer is still sweetened dairy creamer. Multiple tablespoons still add up. And cane sugar is not metabolically transformed by the pleasant word cane. The advantage is alignment. Milk and cream are doing the dairy work. Sugar is providing the sweetness. The label is easier to understand because the major ingredients correspond with the product's identity. It is better aligned with the promise. A shopper can look at the panel, decide whether those ingredients fit their priorities, and measure the amount. Chobani also demonstrates that a product does not need a long chain of oils, milk-derived isolates, and stabilizers to create an appealing refrigerated creamer. The trade-off is shelf life and cost. Simpler refrigerated dairy may not remain stable as long as a heavily formulated emulsion, and it may cost more. That is a real economic decision. But when the bottle says sweet cream, the first ingredients should make that phrase defensible. Here, they do. Better pick number 2. Horizon Organic Half and Half. Half and half is not simply another marketing term for creamer. It has a federal standard of identity. In the United States, half and half must contain at least 10.5% but less than 18% milk fat. That definition changes the shopping conversation. A carton of plain Horizon Organic Half and Half is built around milk and cream rather than water, sugar, and vegetable oil. It contains naturally occurring milk sugar, but no added sugar is required to make it function in coffee. What it provides is a regulated identity and a clearer ingredient story. Because half and half is richer than many oil and water creamers, some people find that a smaller measured amount is enough. Others pour just as heavily, which is why the tablespoon still matters. This is not a recommendation to treat cream as unlimited. It is a recommendation to choose the product that matches the outcome you want. If the goal is actual dairy richness without added sweetness, plain half and half is difficult to beat. If the goal is vanilla dessert coffee, this carton will not create that flavor on its own. That is a feature, not a deception. Horizon gives you a federally defined dairy product. You decide whether and how much sugar to add. Better pick number 1. Organic Valley Organic Half and Half. The number 1 pick follows the simplest principle in this investigation. When you want cream in coffee, buy a product made from milk and cream. Organic Valley Organic Half and Half lists organic milk and organic cream. No caramel system, no corn syrup solids, no vegetable oil pretending to be dairy fat, no added sugar hidden inside a flavored splash. It is not calorie-free, and it contains saturated fat. A person whose clinician has advised limiting saturated fat should take that seriously. But the ingredient list is direct. The product category has a federal identity, and the carton does not ask flavoring to create a story the ingredients cannot support. This is why it ranks first. Not because organic half and half is a miracle food, because there is almost no gap between the name, the ingredients, and the function. A tablespoon turns coffee lighter and richer. 2 ingredients explain why. The organic seal may matter to shoppers who prioritize certified organic dairy practices. Those who do not can apply the same rule to another plain half and half. Check that the ingredients are milk and cream. Compare the price. Measure the amount. The brand is the recommendation. The principle is bigger than the brand. Clarity beats theater. The final shopping rule. Here is the fastest way to shop the creamer aisle. First, decide what you actually want. If you want dairy, look for milk and cream near the beginning of the ingredient list. If you want plant-based, choose a product that clearly names its base and compare sweetened with unsweetened versions. If you want zero sugar, remember that zero sugar does not mean unsweetened. Check for sucralose, acesulfame potassium, or other high-intensity sweeteners and decide whether you want them. If a product says non-dairy, check the allergen statement. Sodium caseinate is derived from milk, and people with milk allergy should not rely on the front panel word alone. Then check the serving size. Do not ask how many grams of added sugar are in 1 tablespoon until you know how many tablespoons are in your cup. Measure your normal pour once. Multiply. That number is your serving. And do not panic over every unfamiliar ingredient name. Emulsifiers, phosphates, and gums perform real functions. Their presence alone does not prove that a product is toxic. The useful question is whether you need the full formulation to get the coffee you want. A product can be legal, safe for most consumers, and still be poor value for someone who believed they were buying cream. That is the difference between fear and useful scrutiny. The coffee creamer aisle is not hiding a single forbidden chemical. It is hiding a category transformation in plain sight. Cream became water and oil. Sugar became a flavor. 1 tablespoon became a 4-tablespoon pour, and the word creamer became broad enough to cover almost all of it. Tomorrow morning, before the bottle reaches the cup, turn it around. The front tells you the mood. The back tells you the formula. Buy the one that matches what you thought you were buying.